Well, so Florida's less than a week out from legalizing medical marijuana, and all of a sudden, the Vote No on 2 campaign put a series of tweets out on Sunday. Now, these tweets, I'll just read them right off. There's 4 of them because you can only use so many characters on Twitter, so they numbered the tweets and they just 1, 2, 3, 4 them. Okay, so our sincerest apologies to those voters who inadvertently received a recorded call during the early morning hours of Sunday. It was not our intention to have those calls made at that hour. Those calls were supposed to be made starting in the early PM and were mistakenly sent in the early AM. We are very sorry for the inconvenience. Whew. Not very good. Okay, so several complaints and angry tweets were filed about this robocall that happened in the wee hours of the night on, I believe, Saturday night. So we got Allison Nielsen from SunshineStateNews.com reporting that late night medical marijuana robocall snafu angers Florida voters. The campaign working against legalized medical marijuana has provoked the anger of hundreds of people in Florida who say drug-free Florida called them in the middle of the night, advising them to say no to Amendment 2. Drug-free Florida began calling voters after midnight and into the early hours of Sunday morning, with some receiving calls at 4 a.m. while others' phones rang at 6:30 a.m. Sunshine State News received emails about the calls on Sunday, and readers were not happy about the rude awakening from the campaign to squash medical pot. Vote No on 2's Facebook page exploded with complaints with voters receiving calls from midnight to the wee hours of Sunday morning. Quote, all this particular political committee has done is show they are capable of spreading misinformation at best, downright lies the majority of the time, and horribly poor execution of their plan to push their nonsensical agenda, wrote Maggie Capadon. Needless to say, they have not swayed my vote on Amendment 2, she said. In the ad, Drug-Free Florida warns what might happen if voters say yes to the constitutional amendment to expand medical marijuana in Florida. Quote, they're pushing a constitutional amendment that authorizes kid-friendly pot candy that looks like the junk food your children know and love, says Dr. Jessica Spencer, who works as a substance abuse counselor in Florida. Maybe she should be more concerned about the fact that your children know and love this quote-unquote junk food. I think it's probably the parents' responsibility in Florida and elsewhere to monitor their children's intake of this junk food stuff. It sounds dangerous. Oh my God. All right, anyway, who cares if it has weed in it or not, I guess, but the junk food that's already there is dangerous. Spencer goes on to say that unsuspecting children and adults who consume the pot candy have gone to the ER as a result. All right, so legalizing medical marijuana actually makes the statistic get lesser people doing this because they know what they're getting into, because it's labeled and it's in a package that is childproof or says, you know, not for children or whatever, or not for a person that's not prescribed to or supposed to be, you know, some states they have stamps right on the actual food product that says THC on it. But anyway, not that that's a big deal, but she left out the part about how they always go home after that hospital visit rather than the morgue. And it's such a small amount of people with these ER visits. It's not worth noting, and like I said, marijuana is not toxic, so even the smallest pets and kids that actually accidentally consume these edibles they're safe. They're alive and well. Whoever lended them the access to that medible probably learned a valuable lesson, and hopefully they didn't get any criminal charges filed against them. All right, so Vote No on 2 spokesman Christina Johnson told the Sunshine State News the calls were supposed to run from noon to 7 p.m., but a vendor error caused the calls to run from midnight to 7 a.m. Ooh, I guess you should have had a vendor that wasn't nodding out on opioids. Okay, so recent polls have shown the majority of voters supporting the amendment, which would legalize medical marijuana for patients with debilitating medical conditions. Over 70% of likely voters have said they support the amendment. Amendment 2 needs to garner 60% of the vote to pass. And remember, last time they tried this, it only got like 58%. So everybody was mad. They're like, oh, what do you mean? It's over 50%. Well, it's a constitutional amendment, so you have to get that extra 60%, so it can't be reversed without some kind of like 2/3 of the majority of the House and Senate to overturn a constitutional amendment. So there you go with that story. I think it's kind of funny, but not really. I wouldn't want to be one of the people that were rudely interrupted in the middle of the night. You know, and it's like that Hillary Clinton commercial back in the day, like, who's going to answer the phone at 3 in the morning? And it's like, I'm going to answer it at 3 in the morning. And I hope it's not an emergency. I hope it's not someone like, hey, the only reason I would be calling you at 3 in the morning is because somebody just got in a car wreck, something else happened to somebody, something not good is going on, you know, unless you're in the party scene, or like me, I usually stay up all night. I'm just kind of an all-nighter person. But I wouldn't expect most people to actually call me at this hour. Even the people that I know that are still up themselves, we've got better things to do. If I really need to talk to you, we probably hit each other up online or something, because we know we're probably online. So don't do it. Don't robocall people. I don't care if you say it was an accident. I have my own theory about this. I don't know if I should even mention it, because, you know, what's the point? But maybe the PR firm or whatever this thing was that they hired to make these calls, the robocall people, maybe they just, you know, didn't like these robocalls after they heard the messages, and maybe they were for two passing. That could be a thing too. And what's the big deal? All you got to do is, you know, hey, you know, it's a glitch, something happened that we beyond our control, and move on. Now you can pursue it if they want, the no on two people, but it looks like they threw some money out there that just got dumped, and someone just made a fool of them. But however you look at it, they made some calls and they pissed some people off. Now, as you can see, I got a big list of comments from the comments section of that article in the Sunshine State News about this, and they're not all that happy, I'll tell you. Well, let's get into them. I just want to read through these real quick, maybe throw a couple of notes on some of them, but they're pretty cool. So, a bunch of annoyed callers, or not callers, but commenters first. So, I'm not going to actually name out people's names when I see an actual name. I'm just going to say that this is a new comment or something. So the first one, now obviously annoyed is not somebody's name, so I'll say that if it's a nickname. So this was submitted by Annoyed, and he said, we also had a robocall at 12:26 a.m. Sunday, October 30th from this number, and he gives the phone number. This was very disturbing because at the time of the night, all you think of is that something is very wrong with elderly parents or children or grandchildren in another state. But I want to go on to say that these calls, along with all the other calls, are true harassment. And then there's the next one. You know why the robocalls were sent wrong? Because the people in charge were so manic from all the Ritalin and SSRIs they were on. Anyway, some of these are, I went through these and crossed out some of the venting and stuff like that, but maybe edited a few of these comments down a little bit. Sorry whoever the commenter is about that if you didn't want to get your comment edited, but that's just, it's public domain at this point. So this was submitted by another person. I am on a no-call list. Clearly this violates the law on unwanted calls. Possibly a class action lawsuit or multiple individual lawsuits would have some effect on the lies being spread. Enough for unwanted calls. Okay, and then here comes another one, Coin Spinner. I mean, who doesn't love a bunch of lies called into them at 2 a.m., right? And then somebody answered that by saying, better than getting a call telling you the horrible truth at 2 a.m. Ooh, yeah, that's pretty much, I'll have to agree with that. Yup, if nothing else, that asinine call just sealed my decision to vote yes. Peed off the wrong person they did. I like that one. Okay, and then we got another submission. I was really awakened at 1:25 by the drug-free Florida call coming from the phone number 850-692-8796. I'm not encouraging anyone to try to call that, and I haven't called it myself, but anyway, advising me to vote no on Amendment 2. Since I had already voted in favor of the amendment, the call doubly irked me. I followed up yesterday with emails to the AG Pam Bondi, Fred Castillo, my Florida House Representative, and John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan, supporter of the amendment. He's one of the biggest monetary supporters of the amendment. We have another submission. Lies, lies, lies. Fact, marijuana get to the hands of children by irresponsible user to make 1% of all children drug-related accidents. The rest of the children incidents are organized crime related. The drug dealer in the corner do not have to answers to no one. In other hand of the dispensers, personal require ID, personnel, I think, to dispense marijuana edibles. So there you have the lies. What I know what they meant there, but I'm not going to criticize the grammar or whatever. But it was a little bit confusing sounding. But I think basically what they were saying is that the robocall was just a bunch of lies, and that the way that the marijuana really gets into the hands of children is the irresponsibility of the people that use it. And then the rest of the incidents are organized crime related, as in, well, you know, organized crime doesn't check your credentials if you try to buy marijuana off them. In fact, they say, okay, here you go, what else do you want to buy? You know, we have marshmallows and Skittles, and oh yeah, we have heroin and PCP too, what do you want? So now we got a freedom fighter with this one. Cannabis prohibition is a stupid waste of police and court resources. An estimated $150 billion per year from recreational cannabis sales in America goes directly into the hands of organized crime and criminals. Legalization will take this fortune away from the criminals and drug lords and place it in the hands of legitimate, responsible business. Another $15 billion is wasted on the needless cannabis law enforcement. Another $30 billion is potential tax revenue. Billions and billions down the toilet every year due to this ridiculous cannabis prohibition laws that make no sense and destroy people's lives daily. Legalize, regulate, and tax. Vote yes on 8. Not sure if the numbers are accurate there, but you get the point. Between the wasted police time and court resources, big chunk of money there, and then you have the, you know, all these drug lords are raking in all this illegal money. You got a bunch there, and then you got all this law enforcement, and then housing people in actual jails. You got money there, and then by the way, besides saving all that money, you're also going to get boom billions of dollars in tax revenue. So I don't see how you can think that any kind of ending prohibition of marijuana is a bad thing. All right, so then we got submitted by Inner City Media. All the comments you guys wrote are awesome. I love you guys. Every comment on the Sunshine State News is for Amendment 2 medical cannabis. I think that says a lot for the outcome of this amendment and what the truth behind medical cannabis really is. I'm extremely happy we made it this far and can't wait to see where we can take this as soon as we pass it next week. Time to really start saving lives and helping others. Blessing to you all. Yes on 2. Now, I used to look at comment sections before, back in the day. For many years I've been doing it, and I have noticed that it seems like every year there's less and less anti-marijuana trolling, and there's a lot less paid. I don't think there's any anti-marijuana paid trolls. I've looked for them, and I'm trying to find them just so I can like pull them out and, you know, maybe show the audience what, you know, these people are doing. But their propaganda never worked anyway, and now their propaganda has given way to this new propaganda set that we have of this new Reefer Madness that we've been experiencing leading up to this election. So we move on to another comment. And here I thought it was just an early Halloween prank call. Here's hoping the trick will be on vote no on 2. Let's see some progressive voting in Florida for a change. I agree there. Florida has been a kind of a right-wing nightmare time and time again. You know, this guy Rick Scott, holy shit, how did he get reelected or whatever? I mean, this guy is he's a criminal. He's crooked as fuck. He's crooked as hell. How did this guy get reelected? I mean, how much corruption do you need to be considered crooked is bad enough for the voters to be like, oh no. All right, let's just take one little example, and there's so many. I could go on for hours about how Rick Scott is basically a fascist dictator. So he sets up this program like a lot of states have been doing now, and Michigan even did it, and Michigan's got 0 people that they caught when they piss test poor people that are getting benefits from the government. In Rick Scott's state, the funny part about that is he directly owns interest in the analytics company that does the piss testing. So, boom, boom, the government pays you, or these people have to go get piss tested. Who's going to pay for that? Taxpayers. So Republicans and their small government bullshit line that they cart out there. People like Rick Scott's a perfect example. They're not for small government. And if you look at these marijuana regulations, toughest thing in the land. Like I heard in Oregon, the marijuana that they've been testing lately is coming back cleaner than anything you could eat, drink. Cleanest shit there is, man. Because there's the most regulations on it. So Republicans, they're full of regulations. Just ask any woman who's tried to get an abortion. I mean, regulation, big government, Republicans are there too, all right? They want the government to be bigger than you think it is. And the biggest thing is arresting people for marijuana. That takes a huge apparatus. There's always, people going into jail or into the court system because arrests are being made constantly, and it's just no good. And speaking of Halloween, I hope everybody had a good Halloween. And I combed through every article I could look through, every city in the country, every place that celebrates Halloween in the world, and I dug through article after article looking for that one incident where somebody had put the medicated marijuana candy in some kid's candy and gave it and passed it out for Halloween to somebody, some unsuspecting Halloween trick-or-treating kid. Didn't find it. Did not find that shit, and I didn't find it last year or the year before that, but every year they've been cranking out the propaganda that watch out because there's going to be some pot-infused candies floating around out there, and your kids are going to get one and they're going to eat it and they're going to end up in the ER. And they never tell you what happens after that because there's nothing really bad that happens after that, except for you might go to jail for not keeping your medicine put away properly. I don't know. Do people go to jail for that when their kid ODs on Vicodin on accident and they're the only ones that have Vicodin? So it had to be their bottle of Vicodins. Do the parents get a charge for that? In marijuana, they get the kids taken away for that. And the parents go to jail or probation, and that's marijuana. Forget about pills. Pills can actually kill kids when they take too many of them. So there was one here submitted by Vote Yes on 2. Desperation is starting to sink in for the Vote No on 2 campaign. There is no other reason to have calls done in this wee hours of the morning. I like that. I got a call at 4:03 a.m. I was not happy. What kind of scumbags want to force people on dangerous opiates when pot can do the same thing without addiction? Other bad side effects? Not the least. They stop working, so you have to take more and more. It's a war on drugs. Or it's not a war on drugs, it's a war on people. Places that have legalized all drugs, I think he's talking about countries that have legalized all drugs or deregulated, or not deregulated, but decriminalized all drugs. They don't have these problems. That's when you make it legal, profitable. It's when you make it illegal, profitable. That's when the problems. That's causing the problems far more. Again, wording not so good. Sorry about that. I didn't correct these people's grammar or whatever. Alright, so now we have one more. It's okay to drink is the name of the submitter. They figured out all the drunks were coming home from the bars after closing because it's okay to drink alcohol at bars. And here's another one. I wonder if any of these anti-marijuana people have any of their family members suffering from debilitating diseases. Probably not, because if they did, they would be the first to lobby for the use of medical marijuana. And then finally, I'm still trying to determine why I got this call in Atlanta. I haven't been a registered voter in Florida in 5 years. That's pretty cool. Well, I just made a whole video mostly talking about people's comments in the comment section on an article. That was pretty fun. But there is one last comment, actually two, but it's a long one. He's talking about prostate cancer. So this one, I'm going to read it. So if you can just stop this video now unless you want to hear this story. And I think it's worth hearing if you're into medical marijuana and what it can do. Because this is very informative. Just like earlier back here, this guy with the big numbers on the costs, the societal costs of marijuana being illegal, being a big deal. This is very informative on what marijuana is actually cannabinoids do for cancer, stage 4. So let's get right into it. Medical marijuana has helped me survive stage 4 prostate cancer. I've benefited now 3 times from medical marijuana in my ongoing 3-year battle with stage 4 prostate cancer, which has metastasized to the bones and liver, twice during 24 weeks of chemotherapy, which ultimately proved of no benefit. I became sick and was unable to eat without throwing up. One time for 5 days, another for a week. That's pretty bad. I mean, I'd be worried right there. But anyway, both times I had friends who offered me a marijuana-laced brownie. Each time, a single brownie was enough to break the cycle of sickness and starvation, and I was able afterwards to eat normally through the chemo treatment cycle. The third time was a month and a half ago. With traditional treatments failing since last November and the cancer riddling my liver, I decided to research the use of medical marijuana in the treatment of my type of cancer, rather than just using it for the munchies. I decided to research the use of medical marijuana in my type of cancer. I found out that prostate cancer cells, like many other cells in the body, have cannabinoid receptors on them, CB1 and CB2. Researchers have shown that THC binds to the CB2 receptor, inducing apoptosis, which is cell death, in the cancer cells while leaving the normal cells unaffected. I decided I would try medical marijuana in a trial on myself. I acquired high THC liquid, 70%, and rationed about 15 grams for a 30-day trial. So use about a half a gram a day. The net result, after 30 days, my medical marijuana trial, my PSA, the prostate-specific antigen used to measure progress of the prostate cancer, dropped from a stratospheric 318 down to 0.43, nearly undetectable. My liver enzymes, AST and ALT, elevated due to the large number of tumors which had riddled my liver, dropped back to normal levels, indicating return of normal liver indicating the normal return of normal liver function. Sorry, I went back from being a man with maybe 6 months to live max to having at least 2 more years tacked on my life. I have no regrets for skirting the law to test medical marijuana on myself. I had no option, having exhausted all the traditional and state-of-the-art treatments. I realized that if I was to beat cancer, that I was going to have to break a few laws. Let's hope the reason prevails and medical marijuana is legalized. And then Voice of Reason submitted a comment to that comment saying that this is what Big Pharma is afraid of. In their billion-dollar-a-year cancer treatments were made obsolete if, by marijuana, they stand to lose everything. I too have stage 4 cancer, but can't use medical marijuana because I'm in a federally regulated job and subject to random testing. Even if 2 passes, I still won't be able to use it until I retire next year. Ooh, it might be too late, man. I know quite a few people who have battled cancer for years that are now in complete remission from cannabinoid oil. I think he meant cannabinoid or cannabis oil. And he's literally dying to make a living at this job where you are always on the edge of, fear of getting piss tested. Because as a marijuana smoker, if he was a marijuana user, or if he used medical marijuana or Simpson oil to cure his cancer, he would fail this random piss test. But even knowing that there's a piss test looming adds that extra paranoia and stress and nervousness which also adds to physical ailments, the cancer, the pain. All that stuff works in synergy with each other to make you even, to make you worse. Um, so that's it, man. They're calling people at 3 in the morning telling them not to vote for marijuana in Florida.